Hey, I'm Mike Love. Welcome to the Ensemble Museum by moderator for today. And I am privileged to be a part of a conversation with a young man that I've known for 30 plus years. And he is not only an author, a radio personality, but he is a television contributor as well. Someone who has been seen on TV1 and been heard on radio stations throughout the country. And he is here to share his wealth of knowledge of music, which is something that I saw in him from the very beginning. Not only his knowledge for music, but the way that he would take notes and the way he would meticulously uh, hold on to information. And he to this day is the person that if I ever needed someone that was going to be a fact checker for anything music, and I said this to him on Facebook, because he will jump in my Facebook comments and be like, that's not right. This is the correct answer. And you won't see him any other time. So I just popped in to let you know the correct answer to what you're saying. But I told him, I said, man, if I ever do another music podcast, you will be my fact checker. Ladies and gentlemen, show your love for Marcus Chapman.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, thank you for participating in this.
Thank you for the fact. I was on the short list
Yeah.
of people who could host.
You got
The short list outside of somebody that was from the DuSable that was going to do this. Who was on the short list of people you would have to moderate this?
Well, the first person I thought of because she's an author is Jean Sparrow.
Mm.
But she's an author, and I worked with Jean when I first started at GCI.
Mm.
And there was one particular day she was on Saturday, I want to say like 10 to 2, 10 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon. And that particular day, my mom had cooked some catfish the night before. And I took some with me to work. And I let Jean have some. She's like, it's Mama Chapman catfish. So I always think of that, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so reached out to her, she was booked, but she agreed to, mention it on her show, which you can do that.
Right. Nice.
So,
I mean, it is in the DuSable Museum.
right, yeah.
Pretty powerful. So,
And I was still thinking man, woman.
mhm.
So I reached out to First Lady, but she had something else going on. So I'm like, okay, well, let me, because I really wanted somebody who I knew from back in the day.
Right.
Because not only this is the launch of the 10th anniversary of the books, a couple of days ago was the 30th anniversary of the first show I did.
Nice.
Edition.
Nice.
So I came on right after you and Diggs,
Mhm.
the night the Bulls won the full title.
Wow. What's this? Okay, 30 years, so it's 96.
Yeah. Yeah. Started working there in 95, intern in 94. Did another internship at a pop rock station in DeKalb, because I was in Northern.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, I worked my way back into the station in summer '95. Eventually, when it wasn't that, but I got back in there and I started working as a studio assistant. And because back then, everybody who was going there between like 6 in the morning to 10 at night, somebody would be in the studio helping them out,
Right.
putting the carts. So the music and commercials used to be on carts. Carts looked like 8-track tapes.
Right.
And they had like one song on them with the title and artist and have a number. Same thing with commercials, would be one commercial, sometimes two, but for the same.
Right. Right.
You know,
Different cuts.
right. They would have a number, and they had a computer printout, all the songs that was supposed to play for the day. Same thing, a different one from the commercials.
Yeah.
So it's funny, when I interned, my first day as an intern, they actually had me intern with WGCI AM 1390. Back then, they were playing like old R&B from the sixties and seventies.
They were Dusty Radio.
Yep, that's the radio 3290. Because I was playing music from the seventies and eighties on my shows in college. They put me as AM concerned officially, but I mean, the studio, it's just
Right.
But I remember the first day, Jackie Hasselwood meant they host and music her. So she had me for all the music for the day for each show.
Okay.
And I remember she said, this will help you become familiar with dusters. Me being 21, I'm like, I already know 80 to 85% of these songs.
You said that to us.
I'm
fine. True market salary factor on the first day. Respectfully.
Like, I didn't know like the early 60s stuff, but from like 65 on, they stopped around, they would go to about 1980.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I know most of this stuff. I'm playing a lot of this. I have a lot of these records. Ain't showing me nothing new with Al Green, let's stay together. Like,
Right.
I had to go a little deeper,
Right.
So, yeah, so I was pulling the cards and all that stuff, and then when I came back in '95, that was my first job with the station. Although I found out it was not official station employee, but independent contract.
That's what you said.
Yeah, because most of the people they had doing that job were like people in college, just came out of college.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's fun. How I found out was interesting. So I had already been doing it for maybe a month or so,
Okay.
and then the station had a concert, the back to school jam at the Regal Theater, '79. D'Angelo, Escape, Usher, Pure Soul, Brownstone, and maybe one other act. And we're backstage, and one of the people at the Regal asked, "Do you work for GCI?" I'm like, "Yeah." And Howard McGee was back. He walked off. When he came back, he was like, "You're not an official employee, you're in the independent contractor."
So I was.
Right, yeah, because he had to go check to see, if I was really an employee. It didn't matter to me. I mean, I'm like, well, the checks they gave us, HCCI, hold it up.
So there you go.
So that's how I found out. And then they eventually had to stop having people do that job. They said it was illegal. And I remember going to the music director, Donnie Cologne.
Right.
To this day, still the best music director.
Okay.
Yeah, Donnie was told. And I remember going to him saying, "I guess this is my last day here." He's like, "Yeah, put it."
Right.
So I didn't become an official employee till April of '96. So that's a whole nother story.
Okay.
We couldn't get it.
So the one thing that I did not say in the intro is that we are here to talk about the coolest music book ever made, the MC 500, 2 issues, volume 1 and volume 2. And one of the things that I said in the intro is that you always taking notes, always writing things down. What is your reasoning in your moment for the notes that you were taking throughout all of those years? I mean, obviously you ended up writing a book. Was that part of the plan back then, or what were you making notes for?
No, it's funny, I don't even really remember taking actual notes or writing.
When you always had a notepad, sister in the front row, co-sign. Right. You always, here's the thing, you always had the pen, and paper, and you was writing something. What was you doing that for?
I think I've always written things down, but not like, okay, let me remember this, let me just, I can remember going, okay, my mom told me this, I don't remember this. So, but I do remember me and my dad used to sit in the basement and he would give like the record from the OJs, like that was his group.
Okay.
And my mom says I would write the information I saw on the records. I would write it down on paper and give it to her. Well, this is what it said. So
And so you don't remember doing this?
doing that,
Uh-huh.
but that's as far back as
That's where it
it has to go
starts.
back that far.
Okay.
But I do
Well,
remember
this is OJ's ring. Like, how far back? And who's this?
it was one they did in the 70s. So because he had all of them except one, I think he probably had that because I found it at one of my cousin's house years later.
Yeah.
You know, and all they records had once name. That one didn't have a name in them. So I'm like, that must be maybe he took it over for a party.
Okay, so you've been writing down, your mom said, hey, this is something you've been doing, and it just continued?
Well, not in that form, but what I do remember being like when I first got into raps, I remember being in the back of the classroom writing down the titles of rap songs I heard.
Okay.
So that was 86.
Look like you were taking notes. That was bothering me.
Yeah.
Like, I was not interested in the class, so I was like, let me write the rap there's. They make it look like them.
Right,
What
yeah.
was your reason?
Yeah, that was it. I wasn't really as interested, you know, in what they were saying in the room at that time. Or I was relating what they said in the rap songs to what the teachers. So like, I remember having a world history class. I liked American history. I didn't like world history.
Okay.
So I wasn't as tuned in, but she would say something like, in the kings of this particular country, and I've been thinking of running and saying, kings from Queens from Queens.
Right. So then you start writing down.
Or remember something about the warriors from this country, and I think of Just Ice coming straight from Brooklyn where the warriors doing like
Yeah.
so I was relating.
Okay. Okay.
And definitely in college, it'd be the same thing. Even if I was into the class, I might still be thinking about something else and writing in the back of it. I had a real classroom front. My notes would be in the back.
Did was it odd or different or unique at all to be in college age, and be into so much older music?
It wasn't odd for me, but I think it was odd to people I was in school, most of them. Some of them were with me, but a lot of people, they thought that was strange, you know, because we 19 and 20 and I mean, I was aware of the current music, but I didn't love it the same way I liked a lot. Some of it I straight up didn't.
Right, right.
But yeah, I wasn't, but I was playing this stuff on the radio because to me it didn't make sense to play that kind of stuff because Northern, you had to have a cable hooked up to the radio to
Okay.
hear the college station.
Got it.
But when you did that, you could hear the Chicago stations. So everybody from Chicago, if they listen to GCI at home, they get to college, they get up, oh man, GCI. So they.
Well, that was that Marcus Chapman.
Right, so
Was Marcus Spoons on there?
So, because I started playing house music, actually,
Okay.
but more deeper house. You know, a lot of those song acts books too. So I did a show, started out Saturday night 6 to 10, it was called The Party Before the Party. And I was supposed to, but with house, you can't just play 4 hours of house records top to bottom. Somebody, it's gotta be mixed. Yeah.
Black folks in Chicago, that's how we do.
And I didn't mix, so I asked one of my guys, named Rob Farmer, we started with one named TJ Ville. He did the mixing, he sat in and co-hosted, you know, and we would have his mix on for the whole half of the first side with a 90-minute tape. Non-stop 45-minute mix in the middle of the show. But on the other parts, we would, you know, play songs and talk. You know.
Okay. So I remember a time. How many sisters did you have growing up? Two. Okay. So I told you this one time, you may or may not. We were at We're on 95th and the record store over there on 95th. Great Jeff.
Great Scott, yeah, Great Scott.
So we went over there and your sister came in. Probably the sister is sitting across from us. Probably, I don't know. But at the time, this was it had to be during the Bad Boys thing. And she came in, she just really started talking you up. She was like, my brother knows so much about music and y'all are utilizing them at that radio station. You know, da 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 this and da 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 that. You know, like she was talking as if I was Elroy and I was responsible for wherever you were at the station at the time. And I was, I'm super patient, chill with people. So I'm always hear what you're saying. I mean, I'm a listening and acknowledge, yeah. So I listened to your sister and acknowledged that you were and had been a person that was an expert on music. But the thing is always to figure out a place for that uh, in the radio station. So do you feel like you ever got an opportunity to use the knowledge that you picked up over the years at GCA, your time at GCI?
Yes, but that was not the concern. Because before I started working at GCI, right after I graduated from college in '95, I took 3 days to really study the station. I'm like, what are they doing that's making them so popular? Because even though I did radio for 3 years in college, I didn't have a big audience. You know, I probably got about 15 phone calls in those 3 weeks.
Okay.
Because I figured out no matter what you did, nobody was listening to that station. I was doing giveaways. People wouldn't even call it a win.
Right.
So what are they doing? So after I listened for 3 days, I figured it out. I said, it's not about music. It's about being a personality. It's about interacting with the audience, coming up with ways to get them involved, get them to call. You know, the questions would be, how are you the question of the day?
Still doing.
Right. Yeah. You know, and so was studying that. And once I figured that out, that actually made me more interested in record. Because when I was in college, it was almost like I was hiding behind the music. Because everything I said was, about the artist, about the song, and I knew I had that like in my bag if I needed it. But I was more interested in connecting with the audience. So because I didn't really get to talk to the audience in college, I saw that at this station, the listeners were already there.
Right.
It was just about getting on and interacting with them, and I could show who I was. I could find out who they were, and we connect. So that was my goal. It wasn't about music because I already knew personalities weren't choosing the music. I found that out when I was intern.
Right.
Most people I knew who were around my age when they heard that, they're like, "Oh man!" But to me, it just made me more intrigued. Once I saw what it really was, I was going for that. Like y'all can pick the music. I want the audience.
So it's more important for you to be a personality
Yeah.
on the air than the music, all your music knowledge, all of that.
Yeah, that didn't really matter because I was gonna have that regardless.
Yeah.
Plus, the music I loved wasn't really being played on the station anyway. I liked the music that was out there, the songs like that.
Mm.
But for me, it's never gonna get any better than the stuff from the '70s. That's the greatest decade ever because that was the ultimate peak of collaboration. People think of collaboration, they think of artists collaborating. So,
Right.
50 Cent featuring Sierra, this one featuring that one.
Mm-hmm.
But the music itself that they rapping or singing on, it was just gonna be made by one person.
Right.
They're gonna produce it.
Right.
In the '70s, the reason why that music lasts is because there's so many people who put their heart and soul in it. Wasn't just the singer or whoever's name is on the record.
Right.
Al Green is a perfect example. Get an Al Green record, it's Al Green. But wasn't just him, it's producer, it was Mitchell, it was the band, there were three brothers, the Hodges brothers, they played organ, bass, and guitar.
Okay.
There were three white kids who sang back. Chalmer Rhodes. Maybe it's Chalmer Rhodes, I forget it. But it's three, they sang background on. Then you had a couple of drummers they alternate, Al Jackson Jr. or uh, Bulldog Grimes. Bulldog was the name.
Okay.
So Howard Grimes. So you had all these different people involved creating that music.
Exactly.
And their thoughts of how they should play it or how they should sing it, all of that stuff went into those songs. You know, people just think of artists, all these people. So that's why that music stands and connects with people so much, because a lot of people worked on those records as opposed to somebody computer or a drum machine keyboard.
Is your second favorite era the 90s?
Well, see, this is the thing. People tend to say decades and eras like they're intertwined. That's not really right. Because every decade has at least two eras, some three or four. Let's, the 90s, for example.
Okay.
Music from 98, 99 sounds nothing like the music from 90, 91.
Yeah.
Which is different from the stuff from 95, 96. You know, it changed as time went on.
Right.
The stuff from 90, 91 sounds more like the stuff from 88, 89. That's two different decades, but it's the same era.
Got it.
You know, so when I think of eras, I tend to break it down a little bit more. So for me, the era from like the mid-70s is the peak to me.
Okay.
I'll take that. Put it this way, if I could only listen to music from a 10-year span, well, let's say 11 years. If I could get 72 through 82, I'm good. I love a lot of stuff after that and even stuff before that. But that's my sweet spot.
Mhm.
And I'm not just talking about one genre. That's why when I say the 70s, I mean, you can go R&B, you can go funk, you can go jazz, rock,
Right.
disco. All of that was, you know, just really creative at that time. So 90s is a little, it has a different connection because of how old I was. You know, 16,
Come of age.
right, 16 in 1990. When 1990 started, I was 16, I turned 17 that June. By the time 99 ended, I was 26 and a half. So those are my, you know,
Formative adult.
Right.
Coming from late teens and
Right.
early adult.
but I wasn't heavy into the music in the 90s until, well, at least R&B. I wasn't heavy into it until 95. So from 95 to 99, I know that stuff because that was when I first saw Billboard magazine. I saw one in 94, but in 95, I started working at a record store on my college campus. It was my last semester. So I was able to see Billboard and understand, figure out how these charts work, you know, and then when I was interning, I got introduced to, it was a magazine, used to have the R&R, Radio and Records.
Yeah.
That was an industry magazine. They would have the playlists of all the stations around the country, and they had sections for each format, so you could see what urban radio stations were playing all around the country.
Right.
See how they would compile it together to show which song being played the most around the country. And so I was really intrigued by that. I was into that. And going forward, getting into GCI, like all that music, yeah, I know that pretty well. Whereas the early 90s stuff, 1990, I'm good. I like that stuff, that New Jack energy.
Mhm.
91 and 92, pretty much I'm doing it. 93, I didn't like a lot of the music, you know, at the time. It's cool now.
Okay. So what you talking about, play on the radio or just general?
Yeah, what was played on the radio, because I mean, that's the other thing, like seventies, even if the records weren't hits, you could find great albums, just killer, to enjoy. Just listening to the musicianship, the interplay between the drums and the bass and the horns and the guitar and all that. With the nineties, it's like I said, it's programmed. Just drum machines, keyboards, and some samples. So even if it's good, most of the good stuff were the hits.
Right.
It's not a lot of stuff from that time that wasn't popular that you go back to, you're like, oh man,
So, of course, calling me bad, you want to talk about it, and calling me bad, they use about.
Hell no.
Nobody's saying.
right now.
Or even in vogue for me, I grew was like, hold on, and they squeeze lines in because. Well, when I hear it on the radio, I'm like, why are they playing this song? It's like, but to your point, which was this albums, when do you feel like, or do you feel like within that era of the nineties that a switch flip and albums started becoming albums again, like in the seventies? Obviously not the way they were made, but as far as complete, because you had a lot of complete albums in the nineties as well.
There was some sprinkled in here and there. I think by the time you get to like 94, 95, that's when they started getting me. I can listen to a lot of those, like those CDs, just changing faces, Leah, Brownstone's debut was the first CD because I didn't have CD players. Yeah, that was out.
All tapes, like,
Yeah. I got tired of that on that fast forward rewind stuff.
Right.
So yeah, but by that time, and I remember having access to stuff helps. So getting in GCI, I remember going in Donnie Cologne's office one day. Hey man, you want some music? Yeah,
absolutely.
so I got the Dog Pound and Monica and Faith Evans and all promo copies. I ain't had to pay for them, so it's like, okay, so I'm checking the stuff out and I'm able to appreciate what they're doing. So a lot of that stuff really was good. Then I think by the time you got to about 98, it started tapering off.
Taper off.
The quality of the 4 albums, because what started happening, CDs held more music. So people started saying, okay, well, let me put 76 minutes in there since it owns 77. So a lot of times songs would get on those CDs that were not as quality, whereas, you had 18 songs and maybe 9 of them are good, the rest of it's like, then rappers start putting all these skits.
Oh, wow.
It's like, yeah, so yeah, that quality. I mean, I remember having that conversation with somebody in the station. Albums are not that good right now. Hit singles.
So, let's get back to the book a little bit. The MC 500. When you were in your mind compiling the list of this is the 500 songs that you feel. Well, you tell me what exactly is the MC 500?
Well, it started out, it was, how VH1 used to have shows, be like 100 greatest songs of rock and roll,
Right.
that type of stuff. So I was thinking, I was about to turn 40. So I was like, I want to celebrate my birthday in a unique way. So it's like, what would be my 100 favorite songs or songs that define my first 40 years? And so I started going through my collection and just jotting things down. And I saw 100 wasn't gonna be
Right.
too many songs that meant something would be left out. So then it's like, okay, what I want to do. And I remember, so people think of me as a music guy, but I'm also to a lesser degree a sports guy, particularly football and baseball.
Okay.
And I remember when I was a kid, I had an issue of Sports Illustrated magazine. And Reggie Jackson had just hit his 500th home run. And he said that guaranteed he was gonna make the Hall of Fame because how hard that it was to do. And of course, later on, cats started taking steroids and all that.
Well, 100%.
Right,
Regular.
Something that everybody's doing.
right.
After a while.
But that stood out to me. So it was like 500, and it could have been 6 or 7 of them. But I just felt like 500 was a good number to work with. So then I started thinking of, where I had a notebook, jotted down all the sheets.
Of course.
Well, I needed
Yeah,
one.
please, of course.
I needed a notebook to jot down the songs that might be considered for certain ones I knew. So I would just put a star next to them, like, I know that's going. I don't know what number it's going. No. So I did that. Then X came up with this. I brought this.
Yeah.
This
Drops.
This
Oh,
it's a 500 draft board.
Hey.
right.
So here's what I did. It's all these pages, about 4 pages. So what I did was I came up with groups, 25 songs. And they weren't in any order. I just put, okay, if I could only have 25 songs, what would it be? So I wrote those down. And I took 25 more until I got to 500. Then I started at the end and went back to each one and started putting them. But I only did one group. And then that's when I started posting them, Facebook, Twitter, with the link to YouTube so people can hear the song. And I jotted down like why I chose this song.
Okay.
Like short writers. So as one would get finished, then I would start the next group and just kept going. I started it on my birthday, June 5th of 2013. And I did it as a count. Same way you did those countdowns on TV.
Me as well.
Right. And so I think I finished it maybe still around November or early December of that year. Halfway through, I decided, I'm like, I want to preserve this project. I don't want it to just be, some online posts.
Right. Post it all.
Right. So it's like, I want to preserve this in book form. So I started thinking of how can I make it where it's more valuable for other people instead of just for me.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is because I was friends with a lot of musicians on Facebook, I was tagging them in the posts. Some of them started giving me more information about the songs.
Really?
Yeah.
That's dope.
So for example, Marshall Jones, he was the bass player from the Ohio Players. He won Water Turbine on his head.
Okay. I remember this.
So when I did the post for Skin Tight, he added in comments that he didn't like a certain part of the song. He said Sugarfoot came up with probably the most famous part where it goes to bridge. And he said Sugarfoot came on. He didn't really care for it, but they didn't have time to be overthinking it because they had to hurry up and get back to go do his show. So he just rolled it.
Right.
And similar information came from like Jerome Braley, the drummer from Parliament Funkadelic. He started talking about in one of the posts what type of drums he used, and we did this, and that, and other people did similar things. So now I had a little bit more work.
Got it.
So when it was time to do the books, it wasn't really difficult to write it because I just took my other posts, added more official information, like who wrote the songs, who produced them, the label, the year, the album, stuff that if somebody was looking for these,
Right.
they could use that information and that would be helpful. And then I added in, why I chose it or something about the song, whatever, and that became the MC 500. And it ended up being 2 books because I had a literary, like I introduced to a literary. I think, you might know Natasha Wong.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's an author. She does like futurism books and stuff. So she had introduced me to a literary agent a few years prior to this. Named Lynette McMillan. I never actually met her in person because I wasn't in Chicago when she was here. We communicated. So she helped me get a deal with the publisher. This particular publisher had put out, they did the book that Rick James wrote, his autobiography. They put it out after he died. It was called Confessions of Rick James, something like Memoirs of a Super Freak with the subtitle. So they did that book, and they were going to do my book. They came with the idea of splitting it in half, making it two books instead of one. And they wanted a picture for every song. So at the time I was in Dallas, I'm like, so I'm thinking, like, okay, so we came over and take study. So I send them the pictures, send them the manuscript. At the same time, I had just got back on the air in Dallas. So I'm busy working on that. But in the back of my mind, I know I had these books coming.
Okay.
So time goes on, waiting, I'm working, and realizing like I haven't heard it. So about a year passed.
This is the publisher.
Yeah, the published.
Okay.
So the literary agent tells me the owner of the publishing company wants to talk to me. So we set up a three-way, and he tells me that he thinks these books can be successful, but his staff are not excited about it because they've gotten used to doing these really cheap biographies about artists that sell in Europe very easily. And they don't really have to put in any work to promote it.
Okay.
They felt like these books can be successful, but we don't have to work to promote it. And he basically straight up told me, my people have gotten lazy, so they're not enthusiastic about it. So instead of us continuing to sit on it, me trying to press them to do this, I'm gonna give you your rights back. And you can go out and make it happen on your own. So now I have a dilemma. Do I want to try another deal and wait and possibly have this thing happen? Or am I going to do something Amazon, which was CreateSpace? I had worked with them before, another company. And the thing about CreateSpace, they gave you creative freedom. You could do your books however you wanted to do them.
Right.
But they had a limit on how many images you got. So I don't remember, it might have been like 25 images, maybe 40 images, something like that. And but it was images, it wasn't pictures. Like I was, like was coming. So I'm like, okay, well, if I put this Al Green CD with this Barry White, with this flyer and scan them all together, that's one image.
We'll find a way. We'll find a way. Black folks. It's black people. This is black history. This is how we gonna do
We had for images, I had it right sounds, well, right. But the downside to working with them was that, when you do books through Amazon, they want you to buy them from Amazon. So they can make their money.
it. Okay.
Okay, so they make it difficult for you to get the books outside of, say like if a bookstore wants to order them. Typically what they do with traditional publishers, they don't pay for the books. They order the books, and then when the books sell, the publishing companies get money. And if they don't sell, they can send them back, it's like credit, something like that. Amazon is like, nah, son, you want these books, you buy them and they're yours. If you can't sell them, that's on you. You can't send them back to us. So as a result, a lot of bookstores won't order books that are done through. So if you want to do an event or something, you have to order them yourself. And that's okay, but then the problem becomes the timing. Because they don't make money off an author ordering their own books, because the author only has to pay for the price of printing them up. They don't get a profit on it. So they're like, okay, you want your book? All right, we can either send them to you in 2 weeks, or maybe a little less, or 2 weeks and more. There's no rush shipping. There's no, I need them for next now. Wait. But if people order them from Amazon and pay the full price, they can get them the next day.
Grandma's same out.
Right, so you kind of have to take the good with the bad. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go through that whole thing with the publishing companies, all that good stuff. I did them through Amazon.
Okay.
They came out. And then, I was having a conversation with, remember Sherry Pettiford?
No.
She interned at GCI in '98.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I do remember.
And she,
I do remember shit.
yeah, she was married then. She was
Yeah.
married to a guy who did radio sales. She eventually did sales for
I
V103.
remember, yeah,
So we had lost contact, but we got back in contact through social media. So we had started talking, and she said, well, what's one of your goals for the book? And I said, well, one of my goals is to become a go-to person for music documentaries.
okay,
So, like TV1 Unsung, or VH1 behind the music. She said, well, I don't know anybody at VH1. Well, one of my friends is a producer from Unsung. And her name is Classietta Davis, Classy. So she connected me with Classy, and we first connected through Twitter, exchanged some messages, and then we talked. And she started giving me, inside info about Unsung. And she said that they were kind of looking for somebody like me. Because in those documentaries, they said that, you do a documentary about an artist, obviously you want to talk to the artist, band, the people who were involved in making the music,
right,
the record company people and all of that. But they said in documentary making is considered higher level. Also have people not directly involved, but have knowledge of it, and they can give you broader perspective.
like an else George.
Exactly, so they use that's
Love.
right. Steve Ivory and all these people. And all of the people they used were a little bit older. They had been on it. So they were looking for somebody a little bit younger who could still speak on these subjects and be unbiased. So it was kind of a good time. So what ended up happening, like I said, I had tagged the artist, the post, and when the book, the first book, the white one was coming out, 2015, I did a post letting people know it was coming. I tagged all those same artists. So on my birthday, 2015, June 5th, I get a call through Facebook Messenger from Fred Alexander,
Lakeside.
drummer, right? He called me to wish me a happy birthday. And then somewhere in the conversation, he mentions that they're doing an unsung about Lakeside. I'm like, oh, I gotta get in that.
Okay.
So I reached out to Class because the book had just came out. I was able to send her the digital promo copy and the link to it on Amazon. She sent that to her boss, a guy named Mark Rowland, who's the executive producer on most of those episodes. And she told him, hey, this new guy we can talk to, and he's out of Dallas. And it just so happened that they were coming to Dallas to film on Lakeside and Johnny Taylor. Because Johnny Taylor, his business was based out of Dallas during his career.
Yeah.
And Fred was the only member of Lakeside who was from Dallas. The rest of them were from Ohio. So they were coming to film for those. So the producer of those two episodes, Lawrence Gibbons, he called me one day and we talked, and I'm at home, so all my records and books and everything right there. So he started asking me questions. So I'm like, yeah, and I'm going over to the Johnny Taylor section. Yeah, so because people think I remember all of this stuff. A lot of times it's not so much that I remember everything, but I have access to
Yeah,
it.
records.
Right in hand.
Records, series.
Right.
Records.
Right.
Records. What
Books,
else records? Okay, records
Yeah.
and books.
all of this. So I was able to talk to him. We had a good conversation, and he invited me to shoot. And so it was, remember, it was July 15th, 2015. I had the books event.
Let me back up. So he was quizzing you on your knowledge of these artists?
Yeah, he wasn't trying to make it seem like he was doing that, but that's what he was doing.
Okay. And you convinced him and he was like, okay, this guy, yeah, we can bring him in.
Yeah. So.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so that day, I went to the shoot, and it's funny, I was working with a publicist at the time. I remember her, as she came to the shoot, she was like, are you nervous? I was like, pay. Because,
There you go.
let me back up. So I had seen all the Unsung episodes, every one.
Okay.
And one day, I was watching, I think it was the Jennifer Holidays. And a guy comes on the screen, I recognize his name, he was an industry cat, Kevin Ross. Not Kevin Ross from Chicago, who passed away recently.
Okay.
This Kevin Ross was based out of LA. He had the website Radio Factory.
Yeah. I follow him on Facebook.
Right, so I saw him come on the screen, he said something, I'm like, oh. I said, okay, so now I'm paying more attention. And he either came on again once real brief, or he didn't come back on at all. And that's when he clicked with me, I'm like, this is competition. All these people who come in on these documentaries, competing against each other, airtime. And they probably don't even realize. I'm like, I bet they asked them all the same question. Whoever gives the best answer, more than likely, the one they're gonna put
They
up.
stick with.
So once I got connected with them, not only did I find out I was right, but they gave you the questions in advance. They sent the email, these are the songs we're gonna talk about. And another one, these are the subjects we're gonna discuss. So now I get to prepare for them, just like a radio show.
Right. So,
So,
prep time like that, man. Like, what?
and just to give you an example, the Johnny Taylor episode was the first one I filmed. The same, Johnny Taylor, Lakeside. Lakeside ended up airing. Johnny Taylor was the first one they talked to. So the very first song on the list is a song called Rome Wasn't Built in a Day. I never heard this.
Right.
I never heard of this, because it turned out it was a gospel. Because he came from gospel, he was a protege of Sam Cooke. So I pulled the song up on YouTube and listened to it. It sounds like a Sam Cooke song. He's doing the same type of runs. You know, if you didn't tell me it was Johnny Taylor, I'd be like, this is somebody trying to sound like.
Yeah.
So when they were filming it, they asked me about that. Said, this is the Johnny Taylor influence, the Sam Cooke influence version of Johnny Taylor, this song. Guess what? They ended up using my house.
Song.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so as a result of me giving good answers, I ended up in those episodes more than some of the, like Lakeside. There was some of the guys in Lakeside who was only on there one time.
What they didn't display the video.
Obviously, they know more about it.
They remember less.
But the thing was,
Technical.
to know the stuff, but it's another thing to be able to articulate.
Yeah.
That's where our background comes from.
Radio.
Even though most radio personalities are not good at music documentaries. And I think because radio is a lot of motion, promoting the station, promoting the contest, promoting this concert coming, you promoting yourself. Documentaries aren't about promotion. They're about giving an answer that gives insight into the subject. So most radio people come that they have, I noticed this. There was really only one radio person I ever saw that was really good. It was a lady named Tammy Mack.
Okay.
She was from Houston, and she's based out of LA, so she was like in the H-Town episode and a few others, and her comments were good. Same, well, most radio people, they came on one time on the screen and
That was it.
that was it.
As a person that has done documentaries, I will say that you definitely have a leg up getting all the information ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because anytime they sat you down for anything, whether it's Kanye or anybody, I'm learning on the fly with it. And you also have to what you said is, be able to take that information and say it in such a way, brief and powerful, as you say on GCI.
Right.
So I think the way that they were presented it to you and the fact that you flourished with it was, it worked out perfectly because you got the information ahead of time and your background in radio showed you, hey, I know how to prepare for this and I know how to be brief and powerful as well.
They told me, because after I did those first two episodes in Dallas, they felt confident enough to start flying me out to Okay, because most of those cats, Nelson George, Steve Ivory, all those cats, they already in California,
Okay.
where the company that did Unsung, A. Smith Productions, that's where they were based on. So when they wanted those cats, they could just drive over. But they had to fly me out, because they felt like they knew I was gonna deliver. They were okay, so they would fly me out, we have a nice hotel, and all this stuff.
Nice.
And the first one I did like that was Ruby Ray Moore, Unsung Hollywood, Dolomite. Who Eddie Murphy later did the movie
Right.
for. So I totally dominated that episode. So after that,
Sure, you had it.
right.
I knew that. I knew the beautiful research. Got all the movies already, ladies and gentlemen.
But that's the thing, though, I on my memory. I would always go back and refresh my memory. If it was a music person, I'd listen to the albums, listen to the songs, figure out what angle could I take to speak on. So it give me the leg up on everybody else. Because like the boy with the dynamite said, I.
I would like to add that I only know the movie Willie Dynamite because of ours. That he literally would bring movies from my apartment when I first moved into a place in Chicago. And there was so many blaxploitation movies that I had either heard of or never heard of that he put me up on. I think I was recently going through, like I had never watched Trouble Man as an adult.
yeah,
And you were like, you gotta watch it. It's on the list. But obviously I knew it from being a child and the Trouble Man Marvin Gaye album. Plus, when I was a kid, I mean, obviously you grew up. What let's piggyback off of that. How did you become interested? Because my thing was like, oh, I was a kid when Trouble Man and Superfly came out, so I never was, I won't say interested, but what made you grow into an interest in all of those movies from that era? Like I could literally sit here and say, not just Cotton Comes to Harlem, 5 on the Black Hand side. And I know you've seen that. Exactly. So how did you get into that?
The soundtracks,
Okay.
because I had the soundtracks just for record play. And normally on an album cover, they would have pictures of scenes from the movie.
Right.
They would have drawing, because they back then, the poster art to promote it, they would actually get somebody to draw scenes.
I still want to know why Freddie had whipped cream around his eye. Oh, it was like, that's lost. It's lost.
That makes sense to the police being.
Yeah. But go ahead, don't feel like with your point.
Also,
My
they
ADHD.
right there. So that kind of made me intrigued. Plus the titles of the songs.
They're crazy,
Yeah,
man.
like Pursuit of the Pitbull Hill,
Right. Right.
Brawling Bronze.
Right.
So it's like, it kind of made me intrigued, and then, the one that got me into those, I've seen a few here and there of Town Saturday Night this week.
The top.
Right, but what made me really want to check them out was Truck Turner. Hey,
Okay.
because that's my favorite soundtrack. So I just wanted to hear how they use the songs in the movie. And I ordered the VHS tape, I watched it, I really liked it, and then one day I went into, there's a franchise in Dallas, I forget what they were called, Movie Trading Company. So it was a store where you could, and this was when DVDs had really first started coming out. So this is like 2002. So I went in there and they had a whole section called Soul Cinema. It's like a whole series of DVDs.
Nice.
A lot of those movies.
Right.
And that collected thing, I gotta get it right.
Yeah.
And well, before that though, I had a book that I actually gotten several years earlier called That's Blaxploitation. And it was like this one guy, he had all these crazy write-ups about these movies. And I used that as like a checklist to figure out, which movies I should try to get and all of that. And so when I saw those DVDs, I'm like, okay, I want to start collecting. So that's where that came from. And then and eBay, I became, well, I don't know when eBay started, but I became aware of it in 2002.
Okay.
So I saw I could go on eBay and get the movies that weren't in the stores.
Right.
So I started getting the truck because a lot of those movies hadn't come out officially.
Right. They didn't release them on DVD.
Right, yeah,
So
so
they all on tape though?
not officially. Most of them were, but some of them had never even come out on tape. Or they had, and they were out of print, and so people had bootleg copies, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, so I started collecting them, and I found another book that was even better than the first one. That had the movie poster art, and in the back they had a list of all the movies they had posters for and descriptions of what the movie was. So I was able, you know, get my own ratings. Right, like 5, so that's 5 star. You got to see that. The 2 that they had a good idea, but didn't quite work. 1 was it's trash. So I didn't watch this game. So
I feel like car wash for me, and I'm gonna ask you about this, like the way they worked in those songs in the movie is for me, other than Purple Rain in my lifetime, the best because you talking about songs that they as actors don't even know. Like those songs became popular after the movie Car Wash came out. So when somebody in the movie is singing "I Want to Get Next to You," that's not even a song that's out into the world when they're making that movie. So that's always in the back of my mind. And that's why for me, Car Wash, when I watch it, the way the songs in the movie are like a character.
Yeah.
What is the movie for you that the songs are a character in the movie?
ooh, that's definitely one. I don't know, it's a lot of them, it's the music just fits really well.
Okay.
So I can think of one. Sheba Baby. Pam Grier's
Pam
third.
Grier.
Right.
Coffee was her first big. That's the one made her star. Roy Ayers did that soundtrack. Then Foxy Brown, Willie Hutch did that soundtrack. But Sheba Baby is
That's for that being the first one we could go see, because I think it was PG.
well, it's-
The ADHD memory remembers it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's one of the few soundtracks. I think it's only maybe one other one, maybe 2 of them, where the songs appear in the same order that they do on the soundtrack.
okay.
Yeah,
Purple Rain is like, except for the song Purple Rain,
And
all the songs play in the movie the exact order that they play on the album, except for Purple Rain. I think Purple Rain is last. Purple,
yeah.
but go ahead.
Yeah.
Did we interrupt the Unsung story? Because I know I kind of jumped in and
Well,
we can get back to that. Okay.
sometime
I love it. I love a full circle. I'm a full circle.
Mitch, when they did Unsung Hollywood, they did it with the story.
Yeah.
And they did an episode on Rolls Royce. So if you look at both episodes, you get a lot of information. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So that was one of the best and the biggest one they did. So
When you say best and biggest, as far as
biggest in terms of the ratings, they said that
Okay.
was one of the biggest. The biggest one they did was actually Cooley High.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was
yeah.
Yeah, and the lady who got me in their class, she produced that.
okay.
So I remember her telling me that was, you know, biggest one. She had did the Bootsy episode.
Mhm.
So, you know, we had a good conversation
Right,
about that.
right.
Yeah, so, I was able to contribute to a lot of those episodes. Like I said, because I understood that it was competition and I prepared. And they told me that they could tell that I prepared and other people didn't. You know,
That those two.
yeah, and it said, you know, sometimes they would interview people who were really big names, and they were, well, yeah, we get to talk to this person. And they would sit in the chair for like an hour and
Give them nothing.
nothing.
A lot of people, do you really credit your years in radio with the preparation? Is it more, is it radio and it's 90% of that is me, 10% is radio. Like where would you say radio played a part in that preparation?
I would say it was at least 50%. Mainly because at the time when I was doing those episodes, I wasn't doing the kind of radio that required that kind of prep. So like when you're doing topics, say like 2006, 2007, I was doing something that I call the 3 o'clock thought, where I go through the Sun-Times newspaper and try to find the subject, people to be able to, talk about or react to.
Mhm.
So when you're doing stuff that's stronger content, you gotta prepare more. When you're doing more of a fun 6 to 10 night show back then, that it wasn't really based around topics and stuff like that, you didn't have to do as much preparation. You might look at some info to see what was going on, celebrity news or something like that,
Right.
but it wasn't as intense. So at that time when I worked in Dallas twice. So the second time I was working for Radio One, which is the same company, CB. And I remember before I started working there, I was in the studio because one of my guys I worked with the first time, and I saw a memo on the wall not from the station program director, but the national program.
Mm.
And one of the points on it was, don't ask the audience questions. Like, okay, so they didn't really want that type of communication, but because I had done it before, I saw the Unsung stuff as a new outlet to do that type of preparation and have, and also too, like, a certain responsibility. Because one thing I hated about documentaries was sometimes black folks have a tendency to want to turn everything into Def Comedy Jam.
Hmm.
Like, for example, VH1, I remember they did like a little brief series about the 80s.
I love the 80s, I love the 70s.
Not those. It was something like black. It wasn't black in the 80s because that was a different. But it was a little more lighthearted.
Okay.
And they were talking about Jerry curls, which is 80s.
Right.
One pseudo celebrity comes on and said Rick James in the 80s, his Jerry curl was so drippy and juicy. Rick James had just died before that. He didn't have a Jerry. Rick James was braids.
Right.
So I'm watching, what are you talking
And so the blowout with the wave, the
Right.
curly wave.
about? Right. He wasn't a Jerry curl.
So here you are, just no knowledge of.
But it seems like it works because of what they're talking about.
Right.
But to me, I feel like if you're talking about these people, especially people who are no longer here to tell their story, and this is the only time their story is being told, and it's probably not gonna be another out. What's a little dignity?
So,
Yeah. It didn't have to be about me. Because again, if I get the best answer, I'm gonna end up on the screen anyway.
do you think that the title historian was given to you after the book came out, or was that more of being on VH1?
I was using that years earlier. Because most of the shows I did in radio, even going back to college, a lot of those shows were recorded. And I turned them into clips to be posted on YouTube. And sometimes when I go back and listen to some of that stuff I did, I hear myself calling myself that. So I used that title a long time before anybody. It wasn't like somebody told me, like, you're a music historian.
So you gave yourself that title.
Right, because I saw other people had it, and I was doing the same thing because I've been doing music research. See, that's the thing. People think it's never really just been about music. I don't have this vast love of music. People assume I have. I love some music. There's music I love, there's music I like, there's music I don't like, there's music I can tolerate. There's a lot of music I just don't have an interest.
Right.
So what I do love is music research. I started doing that when I was like 17. Because when I was in college, my second semester, I noticed that the library had all the old Jet magazines. Remember Jet used to have the music chart? All. Yes.
Oh,
Yes. So
that's weekly, 52 a week.
yes, they have.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah. So
That's
They
great.
had the charts in the back.
I remember.
And I remember we got a subscription at home in '86. But I used to always wonder what did this look like in '78 or '75. So when I got to the library and I saw they had on Jets,
Correct.
I was there every day. And my grades that particular semester were not very good. But that's the semester I learned more than any other time. And it was like every day I was just going back, because at first I started around 70. Then I went back to like 67
Okay.
and went forward up to like 85. Every day it just felt like calling. It was like a calling from the ancestors. You need to know this. Really, that's how I felt because I didn't. I started out just looking at the music charts. When I started,
43 too.
right, right.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story.
Right. So,
That's part.
But I started reading the articles. So stuff like Red Fox starts new TV sitcom. Samples. You know, I remember they called Uptown Saturday Night a get down movie.
right.
So I'm reading all these articles, so it's really giving me more insight into what
The perspective.
Black folks were actually doing and dealing with at that time. So I got a much deeper feel for what was going on.
Those jet charts in my mind to this day were the pulse of what Black people listen to. Where Billboard and all of that was one thing, but the jet, like Black people literally went in the record store and bought what was on the jet chart. Like I got a cousin that's like, because I would say to him, how did you know everything? Like, how did you know Ready or Not by Herbie Hancock? He was like, because they said this shit was in the jet touch. Like he would have the records that I didn't even know the names of. And that was the thing, and just to your point about Jet Magazine, like it really was a pulse. So you got to see. And sometimes it would be like 6, 8 months after the dates of that magazine, it would be like that song is hot. That's how Black folk.
And Billboard was the official chart music industry, but it wasn't like you could go down the street to the store and buy it.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, I never saw a physical Billboard magazine.
So you got
story. Oh, yeah,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
now you could see it at the mall, like the chart they would have in the record store, like in the Sam Goody or something, they would have it posted up there. But that's as much as you saw, you really know that. So going through Jet Magazine started it. And then the next semester, found out we had a music library campus, and that's when I got to the Billboard.
Okay.
Every year they had a year-end issue,
Right.
and they would have the top songs and albums and each chart. And I actually physically wrote that stuff down and used those as checklists to collect records. So I still have those too. Still have all that paperwork from, and I still remember, you know, what was the top album of certain years, you know, number 2 or whatever. And I didn't have to wait for somebody to play those records because I would say, okay, well, I never heard this. But if it was this high, let me grab it and check it out.
Right.
Maybe I'm gonna like it, there's something on there that I could use to play on my radio show for college. So that's when all of that historian stuff started officially for me. And I just kept it going.
Do you think that like the Jet Magazine lost out on not doing year-end top 10s or top 100s or top 50s?
It would be nice if they had, but people always kind of joke about those charts now because a lot of like one off the wall song, you're like, what is this? Like, you know, because it was something they were, and people be like, well, that was just something that was put together by the editors. But like you said, I think that was a pulse of what people, you know, were feeling.
Indeed, indeed. So let's talk about some of the songs. How does Chase Me make it off by Confunction made it all the way to number 2 its importance in your life? Like when it comes to the most important songs, the most, what's the word you use? Like impactful. Like how does a Chase Me become the second most impactful song of your lifetime?
Because That's a song, I think I heard it when it was out. It's not a song I knew it had the record, but I think I heard it, think I saw it right. But Chase Me is important for me because that signifies the rebirth of funk that happened in the nineties, and the rebirth of seventies music period. So there was a station here at the time. It was WJBC, but not 950 AM, there was, back in the day, it was 106.3. It was programmed by Al Greer, who later worked with,
Yes.
and they played a lot of stuff from the seventies that I had not heard anybody play on other radio stations. Like, there was a lot of songs I remembered, a lot of songs I heard of. And I heard it on, they used to do the thing at noon on Friday, Funky Friday. And they would play all these funk songs, and I remember hearing that, like, yeah, I remember that, and that was always a favorite reaction for me at that time, to find out or hear something that triggered a memory from being a little kid. So that time, the record's from 1979, that's like the height of the funk era, and it just has that sound that I love. And so I got the record from secondhand tunes in Hyde Park one day. I started playing it on my radio shows at that time. In fall '93, my show was called the Best of the Old School.
Okay.
And that was one of the songs I look forward to playing. And I still have this particular notebook.
Of course.
I
Of course you do.
don't have them all, but like I don't have the ones from the show before that. That semester, I have a notebook because I'm selling tapes this. And so in the front of the notebook, I have the song that I was choosing from that I might play on each show. And then I wrote down what I actually played. So when I went back and looked at that, I played Chase Me more than any other song. That's
Just that.
and when I got to GCI, they hadn't been playing because they started doing Old School Sunday after I did the Best of the Old School, which kind of, I ain't gonna lie, I kind of resented that at the time. Not that they did it, but that people on my campus were like, "Oh man, you heard that Old School Sunday? That's a good show." I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. Y'all been
Oh, listen.
Same stuff.
but they weren't playing Chase Me. So when I got in the station, I actually had them add that in, and then when I worked on Old School Sunday, I added it in. And what my guy who I did the first show with, I found me a DJ, he told me later, he said that he thought to himself, Mark, it's got something to do with this.
That's a city. That's a song as a one. So there's a lot of memories connected.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's the energy of the song. And I like the theme of it, because I'm not a person who chases you. You don't have to chase me, but I'm not, definitely not gonna chase you.
Do you, because playlisting is such a big deal, has that ever been something that because you literally were doing that with tapes
Yeah.
and then CDs? Have you ever done that with the MC brand, like just posting?
Not in terms of the MC 500, but I started streaming maybe around 2018, 19. I was already using YouTube as sort of my, the place I stored my shows. So when I started going away from CDs and listening to music on YouTube, I started recreating playlists that I had made as CDs just for myself. So first I was just doing it for particular artists.
Right.
And the thing that's great about playlists is with CDs or tapes, there's a limit to how many songs you can get on. Playlists, you can put however. So when I was recreating those compilations, I was able to put more songs that maybe I had to cut out of the other ones. And so I'm glad you bring it up because that's one of the reasons why I relaunched these books for these 10th anniversary versions.
Okay.
They're actually more useful now than they were 10 years ago. Because when you play this, there are people always looking for more songs to add. These books are perfect for that.
Right.
Because you got 500 songs. You got a bonus song in each book. And in the back of the black one, there's a list of the songs that didn't make the MC 500 that I was, considering. I don't have write-ups about them, but it's just a list. And there's a list of songs that I didn't know about when I did these that I've gotten into since that time. Some of them hadn't been made yet. They're more recent songs, within the past 10 years. But then there are older songs that I discovered since.
Right.
Because, back in the day, you had to go to the store. First of all, you had to find them.
Right. Exactly.
Then you had to buy it and listen to it. Now,
Someplace just go listen free.
exactly.
Now it's
So
place.
these days, for example, last year in 2025, I probably listened to about 100 something jazz albums from the 70s that I either had never heard or I hadn't heard them since the 90s. Discovered the records.
Okay.
And maybe they weren't my favorites at the time, but I revisited them and then there were new ones because I'll do deep dives on his whole catalog. I remember one day I listened to all the Dale's albums.
Wow.
All of them.
That's really like.
Yeah, and because I wanted to really dive into what did these guys do. I knew certain records, certain albums, certain songs. They got a song in the top 20. Yeah, but because you can pull these songs up and these albums up on that now it's much easier to find out about the music. Problem is, it can be overwhelming because where do you start?
Right.
So that's where the books come in.
Right.
Give you a starting point. In the back there's index by artist. So if you want to see which songs are in there for cameo,
Right.
and you go to the number, Aaliyah, whoever. You do it that way, or you just go in order because it's not a story being told through front to back like most books would be. These short write-ups about each song. And you can skip around however you want to. You go in the order I put them because the numbers are only beat.
Right.
Because I just wanted to preserve the original project. So when I want to go back and look at something,
But if you want to skip around,
Right.
version.
I have books, and I have other books like that that other people done. There's a book called the Billboard Book of #1 R&B Hits. That was the first book I ever got. And it's every song that's #1 on the R&B chart. And
Stories about them, right? Or just
yeah, write-ups about each one. I found it. I saw it in the bookstore in college, 93. Whoa, too hot to trap out of college.
right.
So I'm in there. So that was the first book I had. So I kind of patterned it after that. And it's useful for people, either however they want to read.
Before we signed on, Boys to Men kind of came on. What's your beef with Boys to Men?
I have a beef with Boys to Men. It's just, how they say, first impression, the last. So their first video was Motown Philly.
Right.
They came on with crazy hats and glad they had sweaters,
Right.
bow ties. I'm sorry, they just look like some straight people. Sorry, I couldn't. I'm like, they could sing, but I was just like, that image.
That first impression.
Yeah.
Never wore off.
And then as they went on, the dude with the deep voice, he would say some of the sappiest stuff. I'm not a big fan of sappy songs. I'm just not that guy.
Not a sappy song guy.
No.
Not a lot of sappy songs in the MC500. Let's see, number 10, Love Gun from Kiss. Let me know the sappy song. I'll wait by Van Halen. Probably not about that type of waiting. But you're saying.
The stuff he was saying, like the end of the rose. Sorry. Okay. I know you're messing around. I just love you so much.
Right.
I hurt too. Ain't trying to hit
it.
But in the summer of '92, I got my first car. Pontiac 6000, 1984. And the tape deck broke after about a month. I had to get it fixed. So I had to run maybe 3 or 4 weeks with just the radio.
Just the radio.
So I'm hearing this particular song. I didn't even know it was voice and the song is Please Don't Go.
Got one. I heard it. In my mind, I'm like the only non-savvy song they ever literally kicked off their career, the CD. Cut one.
The title, it is sad, but they don't sing it that way.
Right.
So
Well, there's a lot of yearning in the night.
Yes,
That's like, what's that? It's like yearning. For me, at least. But you call it whatever you want. This is your world. This is your.
I mean, the way they sing that song, it doesn't come off like Ain't No Road did to me, some of the others.
Right.
So I really like that song, but it didn't make me like the group because they had so many other songs that I was.
Right. Please don't go. It's for me as well.
That's a solid. I can't deny that. And
And
as I got older, right, as I got older, I can deal with some of their songs. But I
I
can
can sing that. I was like, they went straight pop on that.
you can listen to their albums on. I'm
That's
sorry.
the heartbeat of when I joined DCI. I was like, nope. Oh, they were white.
Yeah,
They were white.
that's the podcast. It was Sean Stockman who was man a podcast
Yes.
called On That Note. It's really good. He was interviewing a comedian, Tony Baker. And Tony asked him something about, their songs, and he referred to their second album as the biggest selling R&B album by a group. And I'm like, R&B record.
Right. That's very pop. That's very pop.
Yeah.
So Baker said that or Stone Stop?
Well, Tony Baker said, he was like getting confirmation about it. So,
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, he was saying,
That's-
so, but when I was doing MC 500, it wasn't about artists. It was about songs. So there's some songs in there by artists who maybe weren't my favorite, but that particular song, like, yeah, I gotta give it up for that song. I wrote that song. And then there are artists I love that don't have any songs. Because there's no one particular song that jumps out to me. I just love their sound.
Got it.
I love their albums, like the Crusaders, greatest jazz band,
Right.
probably maybe ever.
That's street.
That was true. I like that, but I don't love it. But I love their album Free as the Wind.
Got it.
But there's no song on Free as the Wind that's just like, oh, so they don't have a song. It's just a bunch of artists.
Yeah.
It's not about.
Is there anything that we have not covered or something that you want to cover or say before we wrap things up and you want to get across to? Well, let me ask you one more question and we'll let you do that. Where do you go? Where do you go from here? I mean, obviously you're re-releasing the books and updating them. But in the back of your mind, if you're thinking about what I want to do next, musically with books, where do you go after basically making the book about the 500 greatest songs of your lifetime?
I had an idea. I actually came up with a title for a book. I was driving the car and based on something I see online, a lot of people say. It would be based more around albums and songs, because I'm really more of an album
Right.
than a song. That's why this whole project was intriguing. Because it was like wondering how this is gonna turn out. I didn't know in advance what was gonna 10 or number 50 or so just the whole process of doing it was fun for me, So if I did something else, it would be in that direction. If I did.
Okay.
But it's a lot of work that goes to, see, people will say they want to do a book, or they want to do a movie, they want to do that. And they, go through all these inspirational quotes and all this stuff. That type of stuff will give you a spark. But when you're really trying to do something that's out of the ordinary, you're gonna be tested at a certain. The test is real simple. Are you willing and are you capable of putting in the real work it's gonna take to get what it is you say you want,
Come on, Bruce.
you know?
Bruce, I'm saying.
Yeah, because some people are willing to do it, but they're not in position. Some people are in position, but they don't have, I remember somebody asked me, I want you to write my book for me. If you're not willing to write it yourself, you don't really want to write it.
Right.
Because the only time you get somebody writing a book for you is a celebrity situation. Those folks get paid a decent amount of money to do that.
Right.
So I can't write you a book for you. If you really want it, you're gonna have to put in work. Like my birthday just passed, June 5th. Somebody was like, well, how did you spend your birthday? Did you have fun? I spent the whole day putting images in this volume because unlike 10 years ago, you can put more images in, now, like I said.
Right.
And as I was going through it, I was noticing, I'm like, okay, well, if I move this here, put this here, I can put the album cover for this song, and it'll be more visually appealing. So I started putting a lot of photos in, album covers and stuff like that, that were not only were not in the first version, but I hadn't even thought about putting them in the first place. Because there were nice amount of images in there already. There were signed albums and pictures with artists, but I wanted to make it better and get it closer to the original vision, which was a picture for every song. So it's not a picture for every song, but it's close, you know. But it took a lot to do that, you know, but I was willing to do it because I kept seeing ways it can be improved. And I had already done it with volume 2, which was easier because those write-ups are longer and every song starts on a new page. So at the end of the write-up, in a lot of cases, there was a nice amount of space for an image. So I added them in volume 1, it was a little different, so it took a little more work, but they're done. You know.
Final thoughts?
Uh, this whole project was really interesting to do. Like I said, for me, it captures the first 40 years of my life, like every song. Some songs, the story is a little more personal. Some they're not, it's just good information about them. But the main thing is that they're not just for me. Other people can use these for their own and enhance their own knowledge if they want it. Or at least some people don't want a lot of knowledge, they just want to hear the song. So if that's all you want, you still get a lot of it. Because a lot of songs that you may not have heard of, if you have heard of, there's more information about them that maybe you didn't know, including from others.
Marcus Chapman, ladies and gentlemen. And the book is volume 1 and 2, hardcovers on the way.
Yeah,
The C500, the coolest music book ever made.
available on Amazon, order them right to your house.
Right.
Take them to the store with you. While you collecting your vinyls,
Vinyls.
or if you're streaming, you can pull them up and listen to them while you're going through the books. Real easy.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes,